Oh no. Oh no. What is that? What is that? Oh no, my powers are fading. They're fading. They're fading. What is it? What is it? It's Pittsburgh night. It's Pittonite. Yeah, Pittonite. That's right. That's right. You thought I wasn't going to say anything. You thought I wasn't going to talk about what happened on Sunday against the Sixth. You know what? I'm not even going to do it. Not going to do it because we still got a game on Thursday we still have to talk about, okay? But just know we got some breaking news. Well, not really breaking news because it already broke yesterday, but we still got to talk about it because it is sort of breaking news. In our mind, Joe Douglas gets fired. I know. Yeah, that might turn into a rant. Daniel Jones get benched. That might turn into a rant. The 49ers nightmare continues. That might turn into a rant. The Steelers continue to win. The Chiefs' undefeated season is over. Anthony Richardson gets a W against the Jets. The Cowboys drama continues. And the Bengals continue to crumble, okay? All of this and more on the 50th, that's right, the 50th episode of the Football Junkies podcast. That's right, we have made it to 50 episodes. And what is the best way to celebrate this than with a whole lot of rants, a whole lot of truth bombs, a whole lot of opinions that, guess what, some people have been saying behind closed doors and in barbershops, but you know what, I'm going to say it for everybody to hear it. So guess what, all of this and more, okay? But don't you worry about it because guess what? I am your host with the most, okay? I'm your chief bagronomist. I'm your chief meteorologist, head of the table, GM who currently is not on a team right now, but don't you worry about it. Don't you worry your little mind about it because guess what? I'm all these things and more, but most importantly, I am your host with the most. Kale, you already know what I'm getting ready to say. So guess what? We're going to celebrate this thing football junkie style. 1, 2, 3. Let's lock in. All right, folks, let's get into the meats and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. We have to start things off with the Jets, okay? We're going to be talking about the Jets a whole lot, but don't you worry about that, okay? So, Joe Douglas, former GM for the Jets, was fired, okay? Flat out fired. Now, before we get into all the intangibles of who has he drafted as well as his record. Let's just get into the statement that was put out by current owner Woody Johnson. So this is what he said, and I quote: "Today I informed Joe Douglas he will no longer serve as the general manager of the New York Jets. I want to thank Joe for his commitment to the Jets over the last 6 years and wish him and his family the best moving forward. Phil Savage will be the interim general manager for the remainder of the season. We will begin the process to identify a new general manager immediately." Now, before we get into any more of the rants, okay, before we start the whole rant process and whatnot, let's get into some of the notable players that he has drafted, okay? So, under Joe Douglas's regime, he has drafted Sauce, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, Will McDonald, Braylon Allen, Michael Carter, and more. Okay, those are some of the notable ones that he's drafted that have been successful. Now, his record has been 30-64. So yes, the record does not look that good. But when we really look at it, he has hit as well as missed, just like any other general manager has. But, for this to be somewhat of a curveball, no, it really isn't. Because you could tell that at this point in the season, they're ready to clean house, right? The Jets are ready to just, hit the nuke button, reshuffle the deck, and see what they have. And, if it's a good hand, they roll with it. If it's not a good hand, then they're just going to keep it pushing. But, if you're Joe Douglas, this is a blessing in disguise because now the opportunity to give yourself a little bit of leeway for the next 2 or 3 years, work under a front office, build your reputation up a little bit more, and then, when there is an opening that you feel like you could possibly get, then you go after it and you get it. Not to mention, he does have numerous connections with, current GMs right now in the league. Andy Weidel, of course, the Ravens, because he did start, with the Ravens and whatnot, in other places. So, all in all, it's not a somber moment for Joe Douglas. It's actually a great moment because, again, the Jets season is continuing to crumble. But at the same time, there is criticism that does have to go on Douglas's lap. And the fact of the matter is, you guys went out of your way to get Aaron Rodgers, right? You guys sent multiple planes to get Aaron Rodgers. And then you decided to get all of his buddies together. And so far, it has been nothing but a shit show. And I mean exactly what I said, and I am not cutting that out. It has been an absolute shit show. And the reason why I say that is because you cannot make the move that you did to go after Aaron Rodgers and not face any backlash from it, And granted, that this could probably be a topic where I could be raging and, freaking out, yelling, doing more cussing and whatnot, but it wouldn't solve anything. The fact of the matter is the Jets have underperformed. And this was a big hype up, and now it has basically fallen straight to the ground. From the offseason where they had Hard Knocks and they were documenting the whole thing and the whole media hype and, Aaron Rodgers and Sauce was, going to games together and everything. And, everybody was thinking, oh, the Jets are going to be a problem. I was telling people this when they made the trade, that this was not going to end well. Okay? Because Aaron Rodgers does not have that gene in him to compel the team to be better, right? Because when we look at things, right, when we look at all the famous quarterbacks that have went to second teams and won championships, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Matthew Stafford, they all won championships. They all won. Aaron Rodgers hasn't. Let's really be real here. Let's have a real honest conversation here. If you really expected that an Aaron Rodgers-led Jets team was actually going to do something, you're out of your mind. Because you could see that the writing was on the wall that at some point he is going to start pointing the fingers. He is going to start throwing people under the bus. And then sooner or later, people are going to start getting fired. And who was the first person to get fired? Robert Saleh. And since Robert Saleh has been fired, they have not done well. That defense has not been well, nor has that offense. And some of that does fall on who? Aaron Rodgers' lap. And that also falls on Joe Douglas' lap as well. Because guess what? You should have the know-it-all to realize, listen, why in the world should I mortgage myself with a almost 40-year-old quarterback who, during the last 2 or 3 years of his tenure with the Packers, they were horrible. It was toxic. Why in the world would I want to bring that into my young locker room? Why? And pollute it. And now you're in a situation where now, guess what? You just wasted another year. You basically wasted 2 years because you were thinking that this guy was going to be the one that was going to take you to the promised land. No, the only place that he is taking you is to the junkyard. And that is the truth. Because now you are in a situation where you have tailor-made this team specifically for Aaron Rodgers. And now you have to reshuffle the deck all over again. Now you have to prioritize getting a quarterback. And to make matters worse, the quarterback draft class is not even really that strong next year. Sure, you have Shedeur Sanders, and sure you have Cam Ward, and sure you have Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers and Jackson Dart and others. But the fact of the matter is, it's not that strong. The only 2 quarterbacks that you can say right now are first-round picks is Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Everybody else is up in the air. Now, Quinn Ewers, you could probably make a case that he probably could be a first-round pick depending on how the season goes with Texas. But the fact of the matter is, Carson Beck is not a first-round pick. Jackson Dart is not a first-round pick. Jalen Milroe is not a first-round pick. So now you have to allocate more resources to the quarterback position because you thought that this guy, this veteran guy, would solve all your answers. And all that he has done is created more problems, created more rift in your locker room, and now he is going to force a lot of your young players to leave the team because they don't want to deal with this toxicity no more. I would not be surprised if Sauce next year does not want to be on the Jets anymore. I would not be surprised, because here he is wasting his prime years, some of his best years, on a team that has not gone anywhere. It's the same old Jets doing the same old thing. And what is that exactly? Failing. Failing to meet expectations, failing to meet the standard, failing to do the right thing. They looked more competitive with Mike White and Zach Wilson than they ever had with Aaron Rodgers. And granted, I understand that that's the first year of Aaron Rodgers. He was hurt, out for the season. Okay, cool. But the constant backbiting and finger pointing and blame game that Aaron Rodgers continued to do has gotten them nowhere. Mike Williams looks more happy now with the Pittsburgh Steelers than what he ever has with the New York Giants. That's what happens, folks, when you get out of a toxic situation and you get into a more progressive situation. Now, let's shift this thing over to Davante Adams, because, yes, I do have a little bit of a bone to pick with him, simply because, once again, you fall for the same okey-doke play, thinking that your friend was going to put you in a better situation. Has done is put you on a sinking ship. I really want you to think about that for a minute here, folks, because here we have a great receiver in Davante Adams. You had a choice to go between the Ravens, the Bills, and the Steelers. 3 teams right now who are most likely going to be in the playoffs, who have a much better winning record and a much more stable situation at quarterback than what the Jets do. And here you are deciding that you wanted to go and play with your friend, who, by the way, left you in Green Bay. He left you. See, there's a difference if, things just didn't work out and this was, it was unexpected and whatnot, and, this was an overnight type of trade that nobody was expecting. Okay, fine. But you knew that Aaron Rodgers was going to be gone from the Packers. And you knew that you wanted another chance to rewrite your wrongs when it came to going to the Raiders. And here was your chance. Here was your chance to be a number 1 receiver on any of those 3 teams. I don't care what anyone says. Davante Adams would have been a 1 with the Bills, he would have been a 1 with the Steelers, and he would have been a 1 with the Ravens. He would have been. And it also doesn't help that you will post a picture of Edgar Allan Poe, the one person, the one icon that everyone knows is connected to Baltimore. And instead of you going to a team that is on the path to winning, that is on the path to potentially winning a championship, you decided to go with your friend. You decided to pick the person that decided to leave you. And now look, most likely he's going to leave you again. Now, should we feel bad for Davante Adams? No, not at all. Because you had a chance to change your direction. Now, granted, I understand you probably wouldn't have went to the Chiefs simply because of, division rivals and whatnot. And I get all of that. But still, come on, man. You have better options. Way better options than this. Come on, man. Say all that to say this. There's going to be more people that are going to be getting fired moving forward. And if I am a GM and if I am a head coach, I know I've been on this topic for a long time. I know I have other things I have to talk about. We are going to talk about those things as well. But I do want to drive this point home because I have been saying this since the rumors were starting to bubble that Aaron Rodgers was going to the Jets. Because you could see the writing on the wall that it was not going to end well. Everybody knew wherever Tom Brady went, guess what? Most likely they were going to be competing for a championship. Everybody knew where Peyton Manning was going. Most likely there's a chance that they can be a really good team and they could possibly win a championship. Even though he was coming off of a serious neck injury, everybody knew if Matt Stafford was to be paired up with the right team in the right situation, that they would be a very dangerous team. All of them won championships. Aaron Rodgers hasn't won one. Just a food for thought. Moving forward to another New York team that continues to grovel own mess, which is the Giants. Now, for those of you who do not know, the decision has been made that Daniel Jones will be getting benched. And not, being the backup quarterback. No, he is the third string quarterback on the team right now. So let's just get into the ins and outs of everything, and then we'll, dive into opinions and takeaways and whatnot. So at this point, at this juncture, if Daniel Jones does not play another down for the New York Giants, this will be his stat line. 216 for 341, 2,070 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 6.1 yards per attempt, and a 63.3 completion percentage, okay? Now, his career record, according to StatMuse, is 24, 45, and 1, okay? Now, according to Tom Pelissero, because he tweeted this out the moment that Daniel Jones was being benched, Daniel Jones was due $30.5 million in 2025, but if the Giants cut or trade him before March 16th, they owe him no money beyond the 2024 season. Now, here is the interesting part in all of this. If cut or traded without a post-June 1st designation, they carry $2.21 million dead cap in 2025 with savings of $19.39 million. Okay? Now, vice versa. If cut or traded with a post-June 1st designation, they carry a $11.1 million dead cap hit in 2025 and 2026 and save $30.5 million on the 2025 cap. Now, I know, things happen and, decisions are made. And at the end of the day, this is a business. But we all know that this was driven about preparing for the future as well as beginning to figure out exactly how much money do they have so that they can invest into building up this offense even more. Because the fact of the matter is, folks, Daniel Jones, since getting this deal, has not lived up to the expectations. And this falls on Joe Shane's lap. Doesn't really fall on Brian Daboll's lap because Brian Daboll inherited Daniel Jones. And Brian Daboll wanted to draft either Jaden Daniels or one of those other quarterbacks. But they decided that they wanted to go and to get Malik Neighbors, which, again, it's still a great pick. It really is. But the fact of the matter is, it's better if you get a rookie quarterback because that gives you 5 years to build that team in the direction that you want it to be built. Compared to paying for an average to possibly below average quarterback who at best will probably be a backup quarterback moving forward. Not to mention, it also reinforces what I've been saying this entire time, which was the Giants needed Saquon. It was Saquon's influence on the field that was making Daniel Jones look good. And now that you realize that, guess what? Now they're making the tough decision. Which, granted, there have been, insiders that have said that a lot of the Giants players are a little bit disgruntled about it because they all know that this is a financial move. This isn't based off of, anything else, which is true. But at the end of the day here, let's be real here. Outside of Darius Slayton and Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy and Theo Johnson, this offense really hasn't been super productive. Daniel Jones has not been super productive. And let's be real here. Again, Brian Daboll wanted Jaden Daniels. He really wanted him. And the fact that they did not go and get him is a disgrace because now you see Jaden Daniels thriving and potentially going to win Rookie of the Year. He has looked phenomenal this year. This will go down in history as one of the greatest seasons for a rookie quarterback. And the fact that you could have gotten him and you didn't is a disservice to you and the organization. And now you're trying to play a game of catch up. Because now you realize that, guess what? We overpaid. We reached for this quarterback. We thought that this quarterback was going to be the future when in whole time he was not. All he was a mere thought. And so now you've put in Tommy DeVito and then have Drew Lock behind him, knowing that they're not going to be able to win a whole lot of games, knowing that you are preparing yourself to draft a quarterback high. And if you're Brian Dable, you have to have an honest conversation with both John Mara and Joe Schoen. And you may have to throw Joe Schoen under the bus just a little bit simply because, listen, you were the one that was trying to justify the contract that you gave Daniel Jones. You're trying to justify it. Let me draft the quarterback this time because I know what type of quarterback I need in order to be successful. Now, we need to talk about some of these games, okay? And I know I've been sort of, on rants, but you know what? It's just frustrating just to see that organizations continue to do the most damnedest things in the world. And it's like, bro, why in the world were the Giants literally fighting tooth and nail towards the end to get Daniel Jones a contract? I remember it because it was literally getting close to the deadlines of franchise tag players and whatnot. And they were fighting tooth and nail. They were going back and forth like two boxers. And guess what? Daniel Jones got a deal. And instantly when the news dropped of Daniel Jones got a deal, I was like, you know what? Yeah, this is not going to end well. This is not going to end well. But, if I'm Saquon, I'm just kicking back and I'm just, maybe chuckle a little bit and just say, hey, I told you so. But let's get into this 49ers and Seahawks game because a lot has to be said about this as well. So, Geno Smith was 25 for 32, 221 passing yards, 1 interception, 6.9 yards per attempt, and a 78.1 completion percentage. Kenneth Walker, 14 attempts for 54 rushing yards, 3.9 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 11 targets for 10 receptions, 110 receiving yards, and 11 receiving yards per reception. Brock Purdy, 21 for 28, 159 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 5.7 yards per attempt, and a 75 completion percentage. Christian McCaffrey, 19 attempts for 79 rushing yards, 4.2 rushing yards per carry, and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Jawan Jennings, 11 targets for 10 receptions, 91 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 9.1 receiving yards per reception. Now, this is what I will say. I think it's time we have an honest conversation about the 49ers this season. And I think it's really over. I think the experiment, and I mean experiment, that was the 49ers is officially over. And the reason why I say that is because you can tell they're just not the same team anymore. I think last year was probably the last true year where they had a real legitimate chance of actually winning a Super Bowl. I think, once the season ended the way that it ended, I think it was just over for them. To mention, you can tell now people have become accustomed to the Kyle Shanahan system, and there is a roadblock in Kyle Shanahan's offense where there is a lack of creativity in his play calling. Because now everybody knows how to do it now because a majority of his coaches are now offensive coordinators or in some capacity on an offensive staff on another team. That's just what it is, folks. And it also doesn't help that, the 49ers have not done well when it comes to drafting. May I remind you some of the players that they have whiffed on recently? Yeah, I got time today. Let's get into it, okay? So, Trey Lance in 2021, right? They traded 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 first-round picks, and he only started 3 games in 2 years. Now, mind you, he had a season-ending ankle injury 1 year, and then after that, he only started a few more games. Then they shipped him off to Dallas. Dante Pettis in 2018, they traded up to get him. Solomon Thomas, 2017, drafted 3rd overall, and he failed to meet the expectations. And granted, I get it. You're going to whiff on picks. It happens. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that one trade with Trey Lance pushed them back so many years that now it's finally catching up to them. Because you traded away 3 first-round picks to get somebody, and then you didn't even really give him a fair shake. You didn't. What sense does that really make? And granted, there were a lot of former players and analysts and whatnot that were saying, get Trey Lance out of San Francisco. He's not doing his job. He's horrible, blah, blah, blah. But you traded 3 first-round picks to get him. I'm sorry. You are going to have to ride out these 5 years to see exactly what do you have in Trey Lance. and they didn't. And they shipped him off like it was nothing. That's why you see the 49ers in the last few years be so active when it comes to free agency and the trades in order to patch things up. And if we're being real here, it's hurt them, especially this season. Because remember, they put a lot of money into Gravedigger's pocket. And granted, Gravedigger got hurt. And what has that done for them? Nothing. Because now the defensive line is not really that good. And granted, they did trade for Khalil Davis, but that's a depth piece. You need somebody that's going to be able to, change a game if need be. And the only person that, that's productive on that line is Nick Bosa and Yurtur Gross-Motos. I forgot about him. And Leonard Floyd. Forgot about those two guys. No disrespect to you guys. But again, let's be real here. The 49ers experiment is over. And it's okay. And I understand they're going to try to do something crazy this offseason to, try to run it one more time. But it's just no point. It's no point. And granted, I get it. They hit on Fred Warner. They hit on George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Brock Purdy and whatnot. I get all of that. But the fact of the matter is, the truth of the matter is, this team is not a Super Bowl caliber team. The Cardinals and the Seahawks, this is their division to fight for now. The 49ers are just occupying it. That's just it. And granted, remember, a lot of those 49ers teams that went to the Super Bowl and whatnot, they were just as dangerous on the defense as they were on the offense. And now the defense has become really lackluster. And granted, they have Brandon Staley as their defensive coordinator. Now, I remember when that announcement was made, and I instantly thought to myself, that was probably one of the most dumbest things they could have ever did. Because, mind you, have we not seen what Brandon Staley did when he was the head coach for the Chargers? Do we not see how those defenses used to crumble in the fourth quarter? They used to crumble like flour hitting water. It was atrocious. And now you have him with the 49ers? It's not looking good, brother. It is not looking good. But for the Seahawks, great win. Very much needed win. This keeps their playoff, dreams alive. And now they're probably going to be fighting tooth and nail with the Cardinals to see who is going to, win the division. And if I could make a prediction right now, I would probably say it might just be the Seahawks. But I would have to, check the schedules for both teams right now. But let's get into this Steelers and Ravens game. Yeah, we got to get into the game that everybody was talking about, the game that everyone was saying, oh, the Ravens are going to beat the Steelers. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Mook. You were the person that was definitely thinking that the Ravens were going to beat the Steelers. No. Mike Tomlin once again shows that he has the Ravens number and Lamar Jackson's number. Now, let's get into these stats, okay? Russell Wilson, dangerous, was 23 for 36, 205 passing yards, 1 pick, 5.7 yards per attempt, and a 63.9 completion percentage. Najee Harris, 18 attempts for 63 rushing yards, 3.5 rushing yards per carry, and 3 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. George Pickens, 12 targets for 8 receptions, 89 receiving yards, and 11.1 receiving yards per reception. Lamar Jackson, 16 for 33, 207 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 6.3 yards per attempt, and a 48.5 completion percentage. Derrick Henry, 13 attempts for 65 rushing yards, 5 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Isaiah Likely, 5 targets for 4 receptions, 75 receiving yards, and 18.8 receiving yards per reception. Now, this is what I will say, and I'm just going to be completely honest here. I'm going to try to eliminate the fandom within me for the Steelers. You thought I was going to do it, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait till Thursday. Now, this is what I will say. In all seriousness, the Steelers continue to, get wins, and this is probably their toughest opponent they have faced thus far, and they won. And, this wasn't just, one person being dominant. No, this was a collective effort, especially on the defense. Patrick Queen was doing his thing. Keanu Benson, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Deshaun Elliott, everybody did their job, and this was a great win. This was a great win, a very much needed win, because this exposed the Ravens. Because, again, For the longest time this season, teams have been trying to figure out how can they stop this Ravens offense. And the Steelers were the one to do it. They finally cracked the code and they did it. And this continues to show how dominant Mike Tomlin is when it comes to the Ravens. Because again, as I said before in the previous episode leading up to this game, the Steelers have won 7 of the 8 last matchups between the Steelers and Ravens. And mind you, some of those Steelers teams did not have a whole lot of talent, whether that be because of injuries or, people not playing well or whatever the case may be. And they still found ways to win. I don't know, man. I don't know. This Steelers team is getting more and more dangerous as the season continues to dwindle down as we get closer and closer to playoffs and whatnot. Now, the only problem that I do have with the Steelers offense is the red zone. They have been atrocious in the red zone. And granted, there were multiple times where you probably could have put Justin Fields in and you probably could have done a QB option or something, but you got to change up the play calling. Because again, the red zone has been somewhat of the Achilles heel for the Steelers offense. I would have thought that they would have tried to use, Najee a little bit more in the red zone, maybe a little bit more of Jaylen Warren, or, just try to shake things up just a little bit more because, again, there were points and times in the game where, okay, they were just using a whole bunch of shotgun or a lot of pistol, and it's like, no, bro, you gotta switch things up a little bit more because, again, this is our divisional rival. So whatever that we show them in this game, most likely they're going to study it and they're going to be better equipped and better prepared for it when we face them again, which I do believe we probably will beat them and then sweep them and then win the whole division. But I'm not going to say it. You didn't hear it here first on the 50th episode of the Football Junkies podcast. Granted, there were multiple opportunities where Lamar had chances to run into possibly get a first down or, to do something miraculous, but he just didn't want to do it. And for whatever reason, I do not know. But, if you are the Ravens, you got to clean that up. You got to do a better job because, again, and this is a crazy stat, I didn't even realize it. The Steelers are undefeated when not scoring a touchdown. They are 2-0 compared to the entire league who are 2-18 when they don't score a touchdown. The Steelers continue to find ways to win games in the most craziest ways. And a lot of this has to be given to Mike Tomlin. And granted, I was definitely one of those people, I'll be honest, I'll be very transparent here, who definitely thought, this is going to be a very trying year for Mike Tomlin because there was a lot of turnover with the offense. Kenny Pickett was gone, Mason Rudolph was gone via free agency, and then you bring in Justin Fields, and then you bring in Kyle Allen and Russell Wilson. You bring in a new offensive coordinator. You trade away Deontay Johnson, and you lose James Daniels for the season. You lose Nate Herbig for the season. Then Troy Fautanu is out for the season. Like, a lot of things have happened, and for Mike Tomlin to remain on the course and to exceed expectations and continue to win games that a lot of people said that the Steelers were not going to be able to win games is, kudos to him. And he continues to show that, listen, no matter what the odds are against, no matter who is playing or who's not playing, guess what? This team is going to be ready to play. Now let's get into this Chiefs and Bills game. So Josh Allen was 27 for 40, 262 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 6.6 yards per attempt, and a 67.5 completion percentage. James Cook, 9 attempts for 20 rushing yards, 2.2 rushing yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Khalil Shakir, 12 targets for 8 receptions, 70 receiving yards, 8.8 receiving yards per reception. Patrick Mahomes, 23 for 33, 196 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 5.9 yards per attempt, and a 69.7 completion percentage. Kareem Hunt, 14 attempts for 60 rushing yards, 4.3 rushing yards per carry, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Xavier Worthy, 5 targets for 4 receptions, 61 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 15.3 receiving yards per reception. Now, this is what I will say here, folks. The Bills went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. And granted, they got the win. That's great and all. Kudos to them and whatnot. But, no one really cares about going up against the Chiefs in the regular season. It's what you do in the playoffs. Right now, the Bills just showed that they can go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. Because let's be real here. the Chiefs are still waiting for to come back. Isaiah Pacheco, Juju Smith-Schuster, and company. So they're still waiting for people, to get healthy and, be able to play and whatnot. But again, you still cannot sleep on the Chiefs, okay? The Chiefs are still dangerous. As long as Patrick Mahomes is on that field, they still have a chance to win. And for Josh Allen to, continue to show that, hey, listen, y'all was doubting me. Y'all thought that I was going to have a bad season without Stephon Diggs, and he's still able to hold his own with, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, and company, definitely says a lot, okay? Josh Allen is balling this year. This is probably maybe the second best season that I would say of his career, because that first year where they went up against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship and they lost overtime, I feel like that was the best year that Josh Allen has ever had. But, all in all, great team win. The defense stepped up. The defense were making plays. They were trying their best to beat Patrick Mahomes, and they were able to get through, and they were able to create pressure, and in doing so, seal the game with an interception. Now, let's go to the Colts and Jets game. So, Anthony Richardson, 20 for 30, 272 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 9.1 yards per attempt, and a 66.7 completion percentage. Jonathan Taylor, 24 attempts for 57 rushing yards, 2.4 rushing yards per carry, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Josh Downs, 5 targets for 5 receptions, 84 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 16.8 receiving yards per reception. Aaron Rodgers, 22 for 29, 184 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 6.3 yards per attempt, and a 75.9 completion percentage. Breece Hall, 16 rushes of 78 rushing yards, 4.9 rushing yards per carry, 1 touchdown, and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Devontae Adams, 7 targets for 6 receptions, 72 receiving yards, and 12 receiving yards per reception. Now, this is what I will say, because the Colts made a comeback, okay? Because there was a point in time, things were starting to look a little bit out of hand, okay? The Jets defense was, they were starting to do their thing. They were starting to get some momentum. They were starting to, create pressure and, cause fumbles and whatnot. But I don't know how they did it, but the Colts buckled down and they got the win. And to put the cherry on top, Anthony Richardson ran in and he ran over DJ Reed. I'm talking about straight up, put your head down, run him over. That is something that if you are a Colts fan, if you are a Colts player, that you can hang your hat on, because guess what? Anthony Richardson fought. He fought his way back into being the starting quarterback again, and he fought his way to get this W. So all in all, a great win for them. It still puts them in a good position to possibly make it to the playoffs, because again, the Texans still look a little bit, shaky in my mind, but I could be wrong here. But, for the Jets, I don't think there's really a whole lot that I have to really say, because I already said it, prior to this point. So, the Jets will be the Jets. It definitely sucks for a lot of those players, especially those veteran players who, they have more time behind them than ahead of them. We're under the impression that this was going to be the year where they actually, were a part of a team that was actually going to be able to, win a playoff game and, actually go on a run. But clearly that was not the case, and now their dream has now turned into a nightmare. Now, let's move forward before I go any more further. So, Joe Burrow was 28 for 50, 356 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 7.1 yards per attempt, and a 56 completion percentage. T. Higgins, 13 targets for 9 receptions, 148 receiving yards, 1 touchdown, and 16.4 receiving yards per reception. Now, Chase Brown, 22 attempts for 86 rushing yards, 3.9 rushing yards per carry, and 1 rush of 10-plus yards or more. Justin Herbert, 17 for 36, 297 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 8.3 yards per attempt, and a 47.2 completion percentage. J.K. Dobbins, 11 attempts for 56 rushing yards, 5.1 rushing yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Lad McConkey, 9 targets for 6 receptions, 123 receiving yards, and 20.5 receiving yards per reception. Now, this is what I will say here, folks. The Bengals defense continues to show why they are going to be the Achilles heel for this Bengals team when it comes to making it to the playoffs. Because again, they were getting diced up. I'm talking about you get the finest chef you can possibly think of that have the greatest knife skills in the world, and they are just chopping them up. Burrow can only do so much here, folks. And for him to constantly, throw 2 and 3 and 4 touchdowns a game just to be able to possibly get close of winning a game definitely says a lot. But, Jamar Chase, had some thoughts on the loss, and let's just say they're a little bit scathing. Okay, so this is what he says, and I quote, "Ask Zach, ask the coaches, don't ask me. I play football on the field. I don't call plays for us." And this is just one instance to show how the frustration is starting to build, especially for some of the offensive players, because they have been carrying the majority of the workload for the team. And, for Jamar Chase, it's a little bit more frustrating for him because guess what? I was trying to get a contract this offseason and y'all didn't even want to pay me. Now I've been balling out and, we're losing games. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase alone are doing their thing. T. Higgins, sure, he comes in, here and there, everywhere. Mike Gesicki has been balling out and whatnot, but it's been the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase show. But guess what? I'm going to put you on some game right now. Best believe the Bengals are going to lose both of their receivers because that relationship is fractured. And you can see that there probably is a little bit of a rift between Zach Taylor and Jamar Chase. And if you are the Bengals front office, you have to begin to prepare yourself for a possible scenario where you're going to lose both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, because right now, Jamar Chase is on pace to win the Triple Crown. And if he does win the Triple Crown, he automatically has the right to demand more money than Justin Jefferson. Automatically. Now, T. Higgins is already going to be going anyway, simply because they haven't had no communication with the front office about a potential contract extension since last March. So that's already, that bridge is charred, okay? It is gone. It's never going to be built. Nothing that they can do in order to repair it. But I'm a little bit anxious about this because, again, if I lose both of my main receivers, what do I have? There's nobody else on the team that I have more chemistry with than with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So if you're the Bengals, you better have a plan in place to either draft a receiver or you're going to have to go and get a, middle of the pack to maybe a big fish of a receiver. But let's get into this Cowboys and Texas game. Yes, I wasn't going to talk about it, but, I had a conversation with some friends and we just got to get into it, okay? So let's just dive into it real quick. Nothing really, crazy to talk about. But Cooper Rush was 32 for 55, 354 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 6.4 yards per attempt, and a 58.2 completion percentage. Rico Dow, 10 attempts for 28 rushing yards, 2.8 rushing yards per carry. CeeDee Lamb, 12 targets for 8 receptions, 93 receiving yards, and 11.6 receiving yards per reception. CJ Stroud, 23 for 34, 254 passing yards, 1 interception, 7.6 yards per attempt, and a 67.6 completion percentage. Joe Mixon, 20 attempts for 109 rushing yards, 5.5 rushing yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, and 2 rushes of 10-plus yards or more. Nico Collins, 7 targets for 4 receptions, 54 receiving yards, and 13.5 receiving yards per carry. Now, this is what I will say. The Cowboys cannot stop Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was playing like his hair was on fire, okay? He was running up and down the field, unstoppable. And, if you are the Bengals, you are regretting the move that you made and shipping off Joe Mixon, because Joe Mixon is showing why the Bengals needed him a whole lot. But if you are the Cowboys, not surprised. I don't know really what to say anymore about the Cowboys. I get it. They're the team that everybody wants to beat up on, laugh on, joke on, all those different types of things. I get that. But, this Cowboys team is just bleh. That's the best way to describe it. Blah. Like, I'm letting y'all know right now, if you had a plan to, watch some football on Thanksgiving, guess what? There's no need. There is no need. You might as well want to pull out some Uno cards and play Uno with your family, because it is not worth it, okay? And if there was a way that they could redo all the commercials for the Thanksgiving games, they might as well want to do it, but it's too late. But this is what I will say. Jerry Jones has a lot of tough decisions that he is going to have to make. And the reason why I say that is because right now you done paid over 100 plus million for a quarterback, and you done paid, close to almost 40 million for a receiver. And now you have multiple holes on both sides of the ball that you're going to have to figure out, as well as get a new head coach in here and to actually create a real culture within the Dallas Cowboys locker room. And that's going to take some time. And I understand, there are probably people that are saying, they should just go through a rebuild and just scrap everything and just get a whole bunch of picks. Yes, they could do that, or they could just go through a soft rebuild. I guarantee you, if the Cowboys maintain course, don't spend a whole lot of money, and just stock up on a whole bunch of picks for 2 years, oh, they'll be competitive. They'll be able to compete with the Eagles, with the Chiefs and company. They'll be able to do it. They just have to figure out exactly what is the plan moving forward, because I don't think they're going to pay Micah Parsons. I just don't. Because Micah Parsons is going to demand a lot of money. And I don't think Jerry is going to want to pay Micah Parsons a whole lot of money. Especially defense has not been playing well. You need a running back. You need another receiver. Like, there's multiple holes on both sides of the ball in very key positions that are going to need to be addressed, not only in the draft, but as well as in free agency. And, if you are the Cowboys, maybe dangle Michael Parsons out there. See exactly, what teams will be willing to give up for him. And if it's super lucrative, then hey, you go in and you pull the trigger. But if not, then, you know exactly what you have to do. Because at this point, you guys are not competitive. You guys wouldn't be competitive even if you had Dak on the field. You just wouldn't. Right now, this team, they're playing like they have mentally checked out, and that they are just trying to get through the season so that they can have vacation and plan what they want to do moving forward with their agents and whatever the things that most professional athletes have to do. But we'll just have to wait and see what exactly happens with the Cowboys moving forward, because I think fans are a little bit sick and tired of the buildup of every single year that this is going to be our year, this is going to be our year, and then they fail to meet expectations, especially when they've been dominant, the previous 3 years, 2 or 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to end this here. If you guys like what you are listening, please, 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 please like, share, subscribe, turn that notification bell on, don't download these episodes, leave a 5-star review wherever that you listen to the Football Junkies podcast, as well as YouTube. Now, for my YouTube people, right? You can follow us at Football Junkies Pod, okay? Football Junkies Pod for my YouTube people. Make sure that you leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on the Cowboys game, okay? Cowboys fans, let me know your anger and strife against Jerry Jones. Please let me know. Now, for my Instagram people, Football_Junkies Pod, okay? Football_Junkies Pod. Junkies Pod is not what? It is together, not spaced, okay? It is together, not spaced. For my TikTok people, Football Junkies Pod, okay? Football Junkies Pod. Now, if you go on to the TikTok, it'll lead you to the YouTube. If you go on to the YouTube, all right, there is the link tree, as well as all the other individual links that you can go directly to those places and interact with the Football Junkies content, okay? Now, for my podcast listening people, okay, we are available on anywhere that you listen to podcasts, whether it be on Spotify, RSS feed, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, if I'm not mistaken, and a few other places, okay? Can't really think of them right now because there's a whole bunch of ideas that I have for this podcast, okay? Now, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much, okay? I'm going to try to see if we can put out an episode tomorrow. If not, whatever, but who knows? Maybe we will do, a live reaction on exactly what happens with the Steelers and Browns game. I don't know. Stay tuned. But as always, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. This is a celebration not only for me, but for you. 50 episodes in and 50 more episodes to go. So peace and love. I'm out. And another thing, make sure that you guys are downloading these episodes, okay? Make sure that you guys download these episodes so I can be able to identify the things that you like and give you a better Football Junkies fix. So now I'm really done. So peace and love. I'm out.